Start recording. See, start. Okay. So in the last class, we discussed about various ways of applying our styles to elements, right? We were discussing the style sheets, and we looked into some use cases where we can basically add styles to a particular element by targeting its ID, by targeting its element name, and finally by uh, attacking its or targeting its basically the attributes, any attributes, with this square brackets, the attribute name, and then its value. It has to have to match as per the elements attribute, and if the values, in this case if it is other than Vishwa, and in the HTML you have something which is not Vishwa, then these two are not in sync, and then the styles will not be applied to it. But in this case, we have an attribute called data striker whose value is Vishwa. And in HTML, if you were to look for that data attribute with striker, you see its value is also Vishwa, and then that will apply the styles, whatever that is inside this block. We also looked into different ways to apply the styles, attribute level, inline, internal, and then finally the external CSS files. And finally, we also looked into how we can make use of CSS to convert the way the elements are displayed, from inline to block level, from block level to inline, the inline block, the flexible, the table, and then finally the none, as we don't want to show the element at all. In today's class, we will move forward with some other style attributes and style selectors. These are called as selectors, by the way. So we'll be moving forward with some of the more selectors and some of the more styles that are available for us. Now, we saw in the last class that we can target a particular element by its ID, and then the ID is represented by hashtag. So IDs can be targeted using hashtag. So hashtags means ID in CSS, okay? And this is unique. This is unique, meaning you can have only one reference of ID, okay? You can always have another reference like this. That's also fine, but try to avoid duplicate styles with the same ID names. And as a matter of fact, just avoid writing duplicate styles at all to any of the fields, regardless if it's an ID or if it's a attribute type or anything. Just don't duplicate the styles, okay? It's going to be a unique value. So we'll basically make use of ID type selectors to be selected only once, okay? And since in our HTML we can have IDs only once, in CSS also it is good advice to put the ID selectors once as well. Now let's say I want to have the style, let's say I want to have a particular style applied to this particular input field, which is first name and the last name. Only these two, not to any other fields, right? The one way of doing it is by targeting by its attributes. So I could say like input, then capture their names, and then I can say f name, comma, to add more I'll say name equal to L name. This will target, and then here I will say background color to be blue, so RGB. Okay, if I do that, go back here, Open up this and enter. Let's see what happened here. So I added a blue color, but then it was overwritten by the ID's styles right now, right? So let me just comment this guy first. This is one way of doing it, okay? By the way, you can get their IDs if the field has an ID, okay? Or better yet, let me do this. What about this entire div, okay? This div does not have any attributes. And similarly, this div does not have any attributes. Let's say I want to add some styles. I got some requirement and they say like, add some styles to this div and then add styles to this div. Now what are my options? Because I cannot say div and then apply styles like background color, you know. I cannot do this because this will basically create styles to all the divs. That's not what I want. I just want it to be applied to with the first name and to the last names. Now to get this problem solved, we have a special attribute called class. Okay. I don't know, container for example. Okay. This class attributes, its sole purpose is to basically share the value to different fields. Like in this case, the value is container. Now I can use this container value and this can be applied to all the, like, to that particular element to which this attribute is being added to. Unlike the other attributes like type, ID, name, where type clearly means what type of input field it is, or the name clearly says what is the name of this input field. The class, however, the class is a special attribute whose sole purpose is to share the same value. In this case, the container can be shared between the first name div and the last name div. Okay, and to target this container, we can say dot container. Okay, let me say this. Hashtag points to ID. The dot points to class. Okay, if I have something like dot, that means it's class. It clearly says like, okay, I have to target a class. And then if I save like this and refresh, it will be applied to only those two fields, only to those two divs. So the div attribute, the class attribute, my bad. The class attribute shares the same value across two different elements. Its sole purpose is to share the value across the element. And now we can target this value container inside our CSS file, and then we can basically add styles to it. Okay. One way is to get their IDs individually separated by a comma, or I can create a class and then share the class between these two elements. You will be heavily looking at classes in most of the applications. Okay, many of the applications will have this class attribute, and that's because its sole purpose is to share the value between them. Okay, clear? Class is used, or let me say class attribute. Class attribute is used to share the same value across across more than one element or tags. Okay. In CSS, it is represented by dot. Dot, when browser sees a dot inside the CSS file, it says like, oh, okay, I'm expecting a class. Then it will go back to the HTML file and then it will look for the value. It's container, so that means it will apply styles to that. I can copy this class container and go to senior citizens. Let's say I can add container here. If I go back, that particular div will also get that style. So this is how we share the same style or same JavaScript using the class attribute between the elements. Okay, clear? Now that being said, we can target elements in several different ways. Okay, that means we can. There are so many ways, like we have seen right now, that I can target a style, target an element, and I can apply my style to that element. Okay. With that being said, there is a concept called box model in CSS. Okay. What box model is that it defines a particular set of dimensions to a particular element. It creates a virtual it creates a virtual box. Okay, let me say rectangular box. Okay, around the element, which can be manipulated, uh, basically. Okay, what box model in CSS mean is that it creates a virtual rectangular box around the element. Like for example, I have the form, right? I have the border. That is rectangular in place. This div is rectangular in place, right? So this is basically creating a box, kind of an imaginary box for me, right? And using this box, I can add some additional spaces, or I can add additional, change the dimensions so that I can beautify my element, make it beautiful, basically, right? So if I inspect element, if I right click inspect element this form, notice on the right hand side you see the styles. If you scroll down at the very bottom, you will see a box. This is what the browsers interpret each element, whether it's a form, whether it's a div, whether it's input field, doesn't matter. Each and every field is interpreted by the browser like this box. Okay, and this box is what I'm referring to in the box model. Okay, now if I select this form, right, and using this box model, I'll be able to add something like margin, something like padding, okay, something like border, width and height. All of this consists to my box model. See, I have margin, I have border, I have padding, the width and height. The first one is the width, the next one is the height. Okay, I'll show you in an example right now. Let's say I hover over this element, right? It selects me the element. Now, if I add a style margin of 10 pixel, do you see the orange? Do you see that orange? What do you call it? The orange space, you can say.
Yes.
The space doesn't exist there. But if I hover over it, you'll see the space. This margin basically adds that much space, whatever the units I'm specifying, which is 76 pixels here. This adds 76 pixels of space outside of the form. Okay, it adds 76 pixels outside the box, right? Similarly, if I want to have some space inside the form, the keyword here is padding. And if I say 10 pixels, you will see, do you see the green box now? The green space. So if I set it to 76 pixels, or let me say 66 pixels, let's say, you see the green box, right? That green
Mm-hmm.
box is what we call it as padding. Padding is nothing but space added inside the element. Margin is the space added outside the element. And the blue, whatever you see in the light blue thingy, that is the content, that is the actual inner elements of that form. Okay, and the border is of course supported by the those 2 pixels. That is the border. So margin adds the orange space. You don't see that space basically. I mean it's empty, but it adds the space between this welcome to my website and this border actually. Okay, if I take out this, you'll see the space between this guy, and this guy is around 29 pixels. Okay, now let me close this guy. If I increase the margin now, the space is increased. Now if I check the space, now the space between those two has dramatically increased by 105 pixels, right? So this is what margin is, whereas padding means the space inside the form. So inside the border, the space is 0 right now. But I can add a space now of 66 pixels inside the form. So my you see, if I go back, you see 66 pixels. That is the 66 pixels. That is the space. You see this value 66. Yeah, that is the space from the top to bottom, or in short, the height when I'm using this tool. So padding adds space inside the element. Margin adds space outside the element. When I add all of these dimensions together, namely the margin, the padding, the border itself, the 2 pixel border that I have here, and the width of the element inside, it has some width and height. So this form has some width and height. If you see, there is 440.14, that is the width of the form, and 387 is the total height of the form, right? All of these dimensions will constitute towards my box model. You see, the margin of 76, the border of 2 pixels, the padding of 66, and then finally the width, right? Do you see this? I am selecting the margin. So you see the orange one. I am hovering over the border. It is actually the border. You don't just see it because it's just 2 pixels. I can increase that. Let me increase the border to 10 pixels or 12 pixels. That is the border, right? If I hover over the border, that is the border. Padding is inside the element. And finally, the width and height of that element. This entire dimension. So actual width is 304, or let me change it to 305 pixels, okay? And the height is 250 pixels, for example. 250 pixels, okay? But when I hover over this entire form, you will see the width is 461 and the height is 406. You see that little tooltip which is form, and then there is some numbers, 461 cross 406. That is the actual dimensions output after it computes the margin, the border, the padding, everything. This entire concept of adding dimensions or adding spaces to margin, the padding, the border, width and height, this entire thing constitutes to box modeling, or in short, box model. Okay? People will ask you in the interview, what is box model in CSS? Okay? The simple answer to it is margin, padding, the border to the element, and the basic uh, width and height of that element constitutes or constructs a virtual box around that element. And this entire concept is what we call it as box model in CSS. Clear? అర్థమైందా? బాక్స్ మోడల్ అంటే ఏంటి CSS లో? మార్జిన్ వచ్చేసి ఎలిమెంట్ కి బయట డైమెన్షన్స్ పెడుతుంది. ప్యాడింగ్ వచ్చేసి ఆ ఎలిమెంట్ లోపల ప్యాడింగ్ అంటే డైమెన్షన్స్ ఒక వైట్ స్పేస్ పెడుతుంది. బార్డర్ వచ్చేసి ఆ ఎలిమెంట్ చుట్టూరా అంటే బార్డర్ లో మనం ఒక డైమెన్షన్ స్పెసిఫై చేస్తున్నాం. ఫైనలీ ఆ ఎలిమెంట్ విడ్త్ అండ్ హైట్ ఇవన్నీ కంబైన్ చేస్తే మీకు వచ్చేది ఒక బాక్స్ మోడల్ CSS లో. ओके अगेन मार्जिन जो होता है वो एलिमेंट के बाहर जितना भी स्पेस हम डालेंगे वो मार्जिन के मतलब मार्जिन जो होता है वो हम एलिमेंट के बाहर डालेंगे. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? लाइक लेट मी रिफ्रेश दिस पेज. इफ एनीवन हैज आस्क्ड यू to say I want this entire form, okay, some 10 pixels or 12 pixels, I don't want it attached to the extreme left, I want it to come in the center or something like that. Your first and foremost intention should be to add the margin, because you have to add some white space or some extra spaces or empty dimensions outside the element. Okay, so this entire border you want to push it to the center of the page, for example. So the keyword you're looking for is margin, then dash left, because I want to add some left margin. So that I can add some white space left of the element. So that being said, I'll add 10 pixels. So I can keep on increasing by using the up arrow. So this is how you basically move the element from the left of the screen. You see, it is keep on moving. I added 300 pixels before this element. Okay, this is how you play with the dimensions, or you can say the box model of the element. Okay, if anyone says to put I want this element some 300 pixels from the left, that means you need to put some white space of 300 pixels outside of the element, left side to it. So this is how you do it. And if someone says that I want to have a margin, some margin of 100 pixels from the top, then you say 100 pixels, and then it will add the space from the top. Okay, now the beauty of margin, because this margin means a white space outside of the element, right, not inside the element. Since it's outside of the element, I can go negative, meaning initially if I go to 0 pixels, the 0 pixels points makes that element here, like at this location, right? If I go negative, it will go beyond that. It will go beyond the screens. Okay, that is the beauty of this element. Similarly, let's say I have 150 pixels or 140 pixels like that. Similarly, if I say minus 300, it will go off the screen. You will not see the element at all. But that doesn't mean the element is not there. The element is there, it's just that it went out of the screen. Okay, clear guys? You see, I can put one element on top of another element like this. I can do that. Okay, This is possible only in margin because the margin is the space outside of the element. Indirectly, I want to place that element, anywhere I want. Since it's outside of that element, I can go negative. It will totally fine, right? Okay, so let me change that to 0. It will 0 means it will come back to its original, like there is no spaces. So it means it will come back to its original position. Now let's say I want to add a padding of 50 pixels from left. Now padding is inside the element, right? So I can go increase it and it will work. But if I go negative, nothing will work because you see, like I cannot go like this. I cannot, like, 0 space means there is no space inside the element. But I cannot say, like, go to vacuum or something like that. There is no space. 0 is the initial, like it's the lowest space I can go for. But negative in padding is not possible because it cannot uh, go out of the element's dimensions. It's practically not possible. So the browsers don't understand negative paddings, okay, but it only understands the positive paddings, like this. Okay, so keep in mind only margins can have negative values. Paddings cannot have negative values. Okay, clear? Huh? Okay, cool. So we now just saw the box model of our element form. So let me refresh. Okay, now I can say my form can have a margin of, let's say, 50 pixels. Now what exactly this 50 pixels mean? Okay, and if you remember on the day 1 of CSS class, I said you can add multiple styles to border, like border style, border width, or and then border, what do you call it, color, so on. I can combine all those into single call, like border, then say 2 pixels of width, okay, space. I can have style as solid, and then space, finally the color is, let's say, red. Okay, similarly we can add margin. Now margin has 4 dimensions: margin left, then margin right, then margin top, and then finally margin bottom. I can combine all this and then put it in a single term called margin, and I can define, okay, I can define the dimensions for each of the sides. Let's say I want, like, like I can have like this: 5 pixels, 2 pixels, 10 pixels, and 60 pixels, for example. I can have like this, okay. But if I write like this, how can you tell me what is 5 pixels? The 5 pixels is to left, the 2 pixels is to bottom, 10 pixels for the right, or 60 pixels to the top. How do you say it? So people are like, like we discussed in the border, like I can write it like this: solid 2 pixels, and the color, which is FF0000. That is also correct. It is not wrong. But copy, and I can also write like this: color first, then the dimensions, and then finally solid. All of these are correct. But as I said, we need to follow certain conventions, certain standards, because if you keep on writing like this, every developer can write their own versions, and then at the end of the day, it will be hard for you to understand, like, what styles are going on. So to avoid that problem, a, a standard was defined, a standardization was introduced in CSS. You have to follow the standardizations for the box model, okay? Let's say standardization was introduced in CSS box model, and we have to follow it. What is the standard is, let's say you have an element like this, right? You have a rectangular element like this. Don't mind the drawing. The first thumb rule or the first argument is always the top. Okay, top is the first priority that you need to look for. Now follow the counterclockwise direction. This is counterclockwise direction. So from the top you need to follow the counterclockwise direction. This is how clock works, right? Clock goes like this, then this, and then it makes an entire circle, right? That is clockwise motion. So we follow that standard in our standardization. So both margin, padding, border, everything follow the same convention. The first term is the top space, the next one is the right, because clockwise means the top, then the right, then the bottom, and then the left, and then the top. So we follow this convention, and then finally the left. Okay, so when I say 5 pixels, 2 pixels, 10 pixels, and 60 pixels, it means it is 5 pixels from the top, 2 pixels from the right, 10 pixels from the bottom, and 60 pixels from the left. This is the standardization that we follow. Okay, so if I go back, if I clear this website and then go back to form, and now if I say margin, let's say 10 pixels from the top, you see automatically it did something. Okay, now 10 pixels from the top, okay, 20 pixels from the right, okay, 30 pixels from the bottom, and finally 50 pixels from the left. This is how it will look. And if you expand this small triangle, it will explain you. Margin top is 10 pixels. Oops, sorry. Margin top is 10 pixels. Margin right is 20 pixels. Margin bottom 30 pixels. And finally, the margin left 50 pixels. So we follow the counterclockwise standard. We'll start with top, then we'll go to right, then we'll go to the bottom, and then we'll finally go to the left. The same styles are at, oops, the same, oh come on, the same convention is added to padding. So if I say simply say padding, and if I say 50 pixels from the top, okay, 10 pixels from the right, 30 pixels from the bottom, and finally 100 pixels from the left, this is how it will look, the padding. Okay, and if I expand the padding, you'll see the top is 50, right is 10, 30 is the bottom, and then finally left padding is 100 pixels. Okay, you have to follow this convention when you are dealing with box model. Okay, go back to here, padding, and then finally the border. The border also follows the same convention. You define the top first, then the right, then the this. Let's see it in action, right? So border, okay, I can say top to be 2 pixels, um, right to be, I don't know, 50 pixels, bottom is 10 pixels, and then the left is 20 pixels. Okay, but when I do this, when I write the border like this, you will notice that it's not applying my styles here. And the reason is because border is the only property which has styles, which has color, which has, other stuffs like radius, and then dimensions, width, height, all of those. Whereas margins and paddings, they only deal with dimensions, only white spaces. There is no color to padding. There is no style to margin. There is no width to both margin and padding or anything like that. So that's why when you're writing one line like this, the border will get confused, like as to how much, what are you talking about? Are you saying that the style or is it style as 50 pixels? Or is it the color 10 pixels? I'm confused. So when it comes to writing the border, we have to define border left. Okay, border left to be 50 pixels. Okay, and then and then I would say, come on, what happened? Then I have to say border right as 10 pixels. Then, oops, what happened to this guy? Border left 20 pixels. Okay, and then finally have a border bottom of 50 pixels, right? You see, when I'm doing, oh, come on. You see, when I'm writing this border left, right, bottom and all that, we have to specify the style of the border and then what color the border should have. So we have to specifically say border style to be solid and then border color to be black in this case. Right? So border is the only, you can say, special case in box model where you have to define its color, its everything. Rest of the other fields like margin, padding, width, height, they don't have color, they don't have style, they simply deal with dimensions. Okay, clear? Clear, guys? You have to follow this convention. Okay, this for border doesn't work, so I'm gonna take it out. But margin and padding, you have to follow the standards. Top, right, bottom, finally left, counterclockwise. Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this point before I move forward? Clear? మీరు ఈ కన్వెన్షన్ ఫాలో చేయాలి, మీరు ఈ స్టాండర్డ్స్ ఫాలో చేయాలి, మీకేం ఆప్షన్ లేదు ఇక్కడ. ఓకే, కౌంటర్ క్లాక్ వైజ్ టాప్ నుంచి మొదలు పెట్టాలి. దట్ మీన్స్ మార్జిన్ అని కీవర్డ్ రాస్తే మనం టాప్ రాస్తాం, దాని తర్వాత రైట్ కి డైమెన్షన్ ఇస్తాం, దాని తర్వాత బాటమ్ కి డైమెన్షన్స్ ఇస్తాం, లాస్ట్ లో వచ్చేసి లెఫ్ట్ కి మనం డైమెన్షన్స్ ఇస్తాం. ఓకే, యూ కెన్ హ్యావ్ individual styles. Like I just want to have top, I can say 10 pixels, okay, or whatever, 100 pixels. Okay, you can define like this, or you can simply say margin, the first one is 100 pixels of top, then right is 0, space, left is also 0, and then bottom is also 0, and then left is also 0. This and the first statement, they are the same. If I expand this, you will see like, okay, I have a top, everything else is 0. This is what this line says. This is also the same. Okay, and let's say you want to have certain margins or certain spaces, like 50 pixels from the top. Let's say I have a margin like this, right? I have 50 pixels from the top, 30 pixels on the right. The bottom is also 50 pixels, and then the left is also 30 pixels, right? You see the pattern here? The top and the bottom, they have the same values. The right and the left, they have the same values. So that means, let me refresh, go back here, let me say like this, margin, I can say 50 pixels from top, 30 pixels from the right, 50 pixels from the bottom, and then 30 pixels from the left. Okay, and you can see the same here in the box model. The top is 50, the right is 30, the bottom is 50, and then the left is also 30. Okay, this is how the style is as of right now. Instead of saying like this, I can also say like this, margin 50 pixels and 30 pixels. This is one and the same. The CSS is smart enough to understand like, okay, the first statement talks about the top bottom and the second statement talks about right left. So if there are only two values, what the browser will tell the CSS as, take the first value and put it at the top and the bottom, the second value to be at the right and the left. So if I expand like this, you will see that the style is applied like this. Okay, this is equivalent to margin 50 pixels, 30 pixels. Okay, అర్థమవుతుందా? ఎప్పుడైనా బ్రౌజర్ ఈ కూతను చూస్తే అది బ్రౌజర్ ఏం ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ చేస్తుందంటే 50 పిక్సెల్స్ వచ్చేసి మన టాప్ కి ఇంకా బాటమ్ ఇద్దరికి రెండే వాడాలి, అండ్ 30 పిక్సెల్స్ వచ్చేసి మన రైట్ అండ్ లెఫ్ట్ కి అప్లై చేయాలి. जब कभी आप ये स्टाइल देखोगे ऐसा, इसका मतलब ये है कि 50 पिक्सल्स जो है बोथ टॉप को और बॉटम को डाला गया है और 30 पिक्सल्स आके राइट और लेफ्ट को डाला गया है. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि हमें इतना लंबा चौड़ा लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, हम ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं. ओके, इफ आई से लाइक दिस, margin 50 pixels, 30 pixels, and then 10 pixels, this is also a valid style. Okay, let's see it in action, like what it shows. Okay, if I say like this, clearly I said I described the top, I described the right, I described the bottom, but I did not describe the left. What it will do is it will automatically add the left style for me for the 30 pixels value, right? If you don't want 30 pixels, you need to clearly say 0 on the left part. Okay, similarly, if you want to have right also 0, you can simply say 0 here and it will automatically add 0 value to the left as well. So basically what I'm trying to get at is the first value, the browser will see if there is no third value. If there is no third value, it will automatically add the first value to the third value as well. Similarly, if it doesn't find the fourth value, it will see like if the second value is there, then it will add it to the last value. If I simply have 50 pixels, it will do is it will add 50 pixels to all the sides, to every field, like this. Okay, clear? The same dimension concepts, the same entire standardization concept applies for padding also. Okay, you have like three numbers. The same thing will be happening to the padding. It's just the difference is it will add the spaces inside of the element. Okay. At this point, anyone has any questions? Did you understand the box model? Because people like, it is sure short interview question. Okay. While we are at it, I just wanted to show one small border related duty. As you can see on the left hand side, I have the black border and it clearly looks like a rectangle to me. Okay. I can add something called as radius to my border, and what will it do is instead of this rectangular curve at the corner, it will apply like a concave curve to it, and it is represented by this statement border radius. Since border radius only deals with dimensions, you can have 5 pixels like this. It's just 5 pixels. So if I select the form again, and if I say border radius, I can say 50 pixels, and this is not looking good, so let me add a padding of 50 pixels. Now you should be able to see something. Okay, do you see this 50 pixels? It's adding 50 pixels at the corner, at the border corners. So if I keep on increasing these values, I will end up with having a circle. I need to increase my padding more. And then I can add, I'll end up having a circle like this. But what I'm trying to get at is you can make the border looks beautiful by adding a radius. Now, since radius deals with only dimensions, I can have 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, and 5 pixels. Same as top right, bottom left. If I expand this border radius, you will see the top left, okay, the top right, then the bottom right, and then finally the bottom left. Okay. It is following the same convention. It has to deal with the first top, then the right, then the bottom, and then the left. Okay. Here it deals with top, left. What I'm trying to get at is it is following the same clockwise notion. It's starting with the top left, then the next one is top right, and then it deals with bottom right, and then finally bottom left. That's how the dimensions can be. So if I want to take this guy out, and if I simply say I just want the border to be applied on the top level, then I need to say border radius, border top left radius as 50 pixels. So it will apply only to the top left. Then I'll say border top right radius 50 pixels. So it will apply to that radius only to the top layer. There is no style called as border top radius or border bottom radius. There is no styles like this. So we have to specify styles based on this. Okay, that's just one of the small tooltip for and again the thing is, like, I cannot discuss all of the CSS styles that are available for us because there are like 200 of them, or at least like 100 of them. I cannot go over all of those. I would highly encourage you to go to this wpschools.com, go to this learn CSS, and then basically learn all the you know selectors that are available for us. I'll be capturing the main pieces, some main components. I may not be covering all of them. You are free to go here. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll help you out from this. Okay. So I'm going to repeat one more time. When it comes to dealing with border, there is no left or top, left, bottom, right. There is corners, right? Because border deal with corners. So it's going to be the top left, clockwise comes top right, then clockwise comes bottom right, and then finally comes the bottom left. That's how we define the border radius. And to do that, the syntax is border dash top dash left dash radius. Oops. Border top right radius 50 pixels. Okay, that's how we declare the border dimensions. Clear, guys? Okay. I will stop the class here. And in today's class, as we said, we discussed about the box modeling. Now, what I want you to do for today's assignment, and there's going to be 10/15 2016 as the class folder. Okay, there's not going to be 10/17, by the way. So I'm adding an assignment here. And what I want you to do is grab the latest code. And now inside 10/15 2016 folder, create two folders, namely template and styles. Place the HTML in templates and CSS in styles. Okay. Next, you know what I mean. Create a CSS file, put it in the styles like how we did in the last class. Name the template, by the way. Yeah. Name the HTML as home.tpl.html and styles as styles.css, and you know how to source it. Okay. Next, grab the form from the class and make use of box model to add spaces between input fields. Okay, meaning in the last CSS you guys might have used display block, display inline, add breakpoints and all that. I don't want that to see anymore. You see that the one I have, the divs that I have, they are crappy. I don't want to they glued upon like that, right? I want to see some spaces in between them. Okay, but you are not allowed to use IDs and classes. Figure it out a way to do that. Okay, you are not allowed to use IDs and classes. Okay, attributes highly like highly considered. If there are any other ways, go for it. I don't mind. But I need you to add some spaces. Okay. Next, I want you to place the form in the center of the page. Okay. Do Google on that. Do Google on how to put it in the center. And when I say center means by width, not by height. Okay. Next, I want to see an unordered list. An unordered list inside inside your HTML. Yeah, I'll tell that, Anu. Just give me 1 second. I want to see an unordered list inside HTML and figure out a way and let's say and how should I say it, and find out a way to hide the dots and place the list items right next to each other in horizontal way. Okay, again you need to follow follow box model for spacing between the items. Okay, and then finally I want to see see what I want to see. Make the buttons beautiful, meaning, okay, I'll go over it again. Grab the latest code. There will be 2015 folder, 2016, I'm sorry, not 15. Okay, inside that create a template folder and then styles folder and then place your HTMLs in those folders respectively. Now grab the form from the class, from this class, okay, and then whatever styles that I have here, screw it, don't use it. Okay, trash it out. But what I want to do is basically follow the box model and then add some spaces to the input fields or the divs which are holding that input field, so that they are looking good. Right now my input fields look shit. I mean, they don't look good. Okay, I want you to make it look good. Okay, they should not look like this either. They should not look like this. Make it beautiful, right? I don't care what you do, but make it something beautiful, like add some spaces from the left top, from the right, but make it centered to that form, if you will. Okay, follow the box model. I don't want you to add some breakpoints. I don't want to add a display calls anywhere. I just want you to use the box model. You are not allowed to use IDs or classes or class names or class values. Okay, you are highly encouraged to use the attribute type class calls, like attribute way of defining the classes. Grab the attribute by its name or grab it by create your own custom attribute. I don't care. But you are not allowed to use IDs and classes. If I see IDs and classes, that's incomplete. I will not mark it as complete. And then place the form in the center of the page. I don't know how do you do it. I just want to see this at the center of the page. Okay, the solution you might have seen in this today's class, I don't want to see that solution because, as I said, like my screen width is 1500 pixels. Okay, your screen width might be 2000 pixels. If you hard code put white spaces on the left like as a margin, if you hard code some 500 pixels to make it look center in your laptop, it may not look the same in my laptop. Okay, so don't use margin left, right? Don't use margin left as 500 pixels or 600 pixels like that. That should not be the case. Figure out a way. Do Google. How do you place content in the center? CSS. I don't care. Do that Google and then make sure that you place this at the center of the page. Okay. This is actually one of the interview questions. How do you place an element at the center of the page? I want you to do it in the assignment, and we will discuss this tomorrow in the class in detail. Okay. And then then we have that I want to see an unordered list. I've shown you how do you write an unordered list. If you don't know, again, do Google. Okay. Can we add styles to element selectors? What does that mean? What do you mean by element selectors? I don't know, Srinivas. It's up to you. Use it. I mean, I don't care. Use it how you want to use it. But you are not allowed to use IDs and classes. I'm specifying it again. Okay. I'm stressing it again. Don't use IDs and classes. You can use IDs. You can use form, whatever you want to add. Because if you, I know if you use IDs, it will add spaces to all the input fields, and chances are it will break your page. So be careful. I mean, it's up to you. If you want to use it, go ahead. That's fine. Okay. And so, as I said, create an unordered list outside of the form or inside of the form. I don't care. I just want to see an unordered list. And basically have a like a label or something so that it makes sense to me. Like okay, this is the unordered list. And you know how the unordered lists are represented. It has the items like dot, and then the name of the item, then dot, name of the item. I don't want to see the dot at all. Okay. And then I want to see all of this list. Basically, the unordered list is like vertically stacked, meaning one below the other. I don't want to see that. I want to see one after the other, like right next to each other. Okay. So like I have 5 unordered lists, item list 1, space list 2, space list 3, space list 4. One right next to each other, not one below the other. Do Google. How do you do it? I don't care it. Okay. You must follow the box model to add the spaces between those elements. Okay. And by the way, you can use IDs and classes just to number 4 if you want to. Okay. If you want to, I mean, you can still achieve it without using those. That would be a challenge for you. And then finally make these buttons look beautiful, meaning I added the styles based on the last class. So I added the red color, the cancel button, the border and everything, but this button looks cheap to me. I mean, it doesn't look like, beautiful. Like when I say beautiful, I meant like something like this. And then GitHub's button. This is a button. Look how beautiful it looks. Don't go by the by this notion where I hover over it and it changes the color. No, I don't want that. I want the overall look of this button. You can take this as an example, okay? For number 5, take github.com website as the example for button. Look for clone button. So if I open this, you see this clone button? in your fork you will have this clone button. Take this as an example. Okay, take this as an example, and then make these two buttons beautiful. Remember, you should not be changing the colors though. I mean, the cancel should be red in color. It has to be red in color. The submit button can be blue, green, whatever, but it has to be other than red color. Okay. Again, you're not allowed to use classes. You're not allowed to use IDs. Figure out a way to place your styles. So if you have a common style which is applied to both of these buttons, figure out a way to add it in single style. Clear? Did you understand the assignment? Okay. If I see any references to IDs and classes to the set other than this number 4, then I will mark it as incomplete because I did not ask that. Don't use IDs and class names. Figure out a way to do another way. Okay. At this point, does anyone have any questions? No question? Do we have to submit Tom? What is Tom? Tomorrow. Oh, yeah. The deadline for assignment is tomorrow 5 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, Sirisha. Okay, so you're new. Okay. Yeah, you need to submit the assignments by tomorrow 5 p.m. Pacific time. And basically you create your fork from the github.com and then basically get the latest code. So if I refresh, you will see 1015 here, and then basically create the folders whatever inside this. So you need to create forks. Okay, I have like 41 forks at this point. People have created forks. So I hope to see Sirisha, your name here in this list, and then I'll check the code. If you don't know how to use GitHub, please refer to class 1 recordings or ask it in the WhatsApp group. People are here to help you out and they will let you know how to do it. Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this point? If not, then don't message me in person, Sirisha. Message it in the group, WhatsApp group. There is a WhatsApp class group. And if you don't know what is the group name, then contact Vishwa. He will add you to the group. And then basically you can ask it in the group and people will help you out. Okay. Okay, guys. That's it for tonight. See you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.